stamps a badge that nobody asked for. Says, I'm official, how about you? He parks on a red curb, double agent in his own mind, taking notes in invisible ink on enemies he can't find. Undergrounder, racing through a parking lot at noon. Undergrounder, slow-mo jump over a traffic cone. When the world goes quiet, he cranks up the danger in his head. Ketamine, booze, and Jesus jam his own. Imaginary kids get saved again. Yeah. He whispers into a turned off mic. Copy that, we're going in. High fives, a cardboard cutout. Calls it partner, calls it friend. Every alley is a movie set. Every shadow, some grand plot. He dies behind a potted plant, yelling, they'll never take the lot. Undergrounder, racing through a parking lot at noon. Undergrounder, slow-mo jump over a traffic cone. When the world goes quiet, he cranks up the danger in his head. Ketamine, booze, and Jesus jam his own. Imaginary kids get saved again. Spotlight on his living room floor. Couch cushions and a foreign shore. He salutes the empty air. Screams for the children everywhere. Undergrounder, racing through a parking lot at noon. Undergrounder, slow-mo jump over a traffic cone. When the credits start rolling, he's posing like a paperback hero. Ketamine, booze, and Jesus jam his arm, saving kids that total up to zero.
Love to see it. It's another Wednesday broadcast of Hellfire Agency. This is our Wednesday service at the Church of Korihor, which is a mission for critical thinking. Everybody hear me out there in the world? I don't know. So we started a little bit later. Apologize. Turns out, pretty much every time I restart my computer, it forgets its peripherals. Now, I don't judge. But I'm really fond of my peripherals. I use my peripherals every day. And sometimes I have to quickly move from inside the house here in Virginia to out in the trailer. Joe, how's the renovation of the trailer going? Slowly. Well, you should see the other room. Sounds like a joke. You should see the other room. The other room looks really good. This room have not done much. Put up some lights so we can do the broadcast as loud as we want without worrying about waking up the partner's children. Now, unfortunately, every time I disconnect my computer now, it turns off. So, which wouldn't be a surprise, except it is a laptop that supposedly has a battery. Anyway, so we are reopening everything and discovering many things were not saved when I moved from the house to the trailer. So you'll be patient with me. Today, we are going to talk about the associations mutual between Jeffrey Epstein and Tim Ballard. Does not mean, and I must reiterate this. Let's get a banner up here. Does not mean that anybody is guilty. That's not what I clicked on. Oh yeah, I guess I clicked on both. We're making it up as we go along. We don't have gods to reveal this shit to us, so we make it up as we go. That opinions expressed are those of the people speaking, and not the opinions of the Church of Korihor. It is an experiment in critical thinking wherein individuals, say for example myself, may express their opinions, which are not proof. Everyone should be considered innocent until proven guilty, at least by the court of law. Now, in the process, yeah, somebody buy me and Jesse new computers. What are you stingy Cororohors doing with your money? To wit, we're going to talk a little bit about saving money when we go to talk about the Cororohor app, which, by the way, is free in a way when you think about it. In fact, saves you money and may save you money on your groceries, not insurance. Maybe we eventually will be able to save you money on your car insurance. Who knows? The sky's the limit with the Cororohor app. The Cororohor app, I have to tell you, is beautiful. It is a beautiful thing. I was going to send out invitations to join the Cororohor app to a handful of friends, as you have heard, Jesse, and friends, Kim, if you're out there. Except that I'm getting a little bit picky about how the page looks. So I'm going to get less picky, and people will be able to join the app. When you join the Cororohor app, you will need to have one person on the app who can vouch for that you are a person over 18, and a U.S. person, meaning that you either reside in the United States or are a U.S. citizen. That does not mean that we don't love our international brothers and sisters. We do. We're just not fond right now of paying for lawyers to help us manage and navigate international laws. The app is a beautiful app, and yeah, and I have big dreams, as we like to do. Talk about Tim Ballard. Handsome man, devoted family man, good Christian, Jesus loving man who may or may not be a trafficker. And I mean that literally, because may or may not be a trafficker could be said about any one of us. Now, however, he is very, very deep in the matrix. And by that, I mean to say, let's look here. This is the Epstein-Ballard matrix. Oh, look how it's still moving. Look at you move, you beautiful piece of software. This is perhaps my third vibe-coded app is the 6 degrees of Tim Ballard and Jeffrey Epstein. If you look, as many of you who are veterans of the agency, welcome back. Make sure you give a like. Make sure you give a follow. Make sure that you... Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You guys aren't seeing this. Hold up now. Hold up. Somebody holler. Somebody holler. Here we are. Okay. Boy, it makes a lot of funny noises in the trailer. Weird. I have to fix some of that. All right. How do we distribute this so that it looks good? Does that look good? Does this look good? Does this look good? All right. So you remember last time we had a whole bunch of these highlighted over here where I mentioned the association that I, Exmo Joe, have with Tim Ballard, one person formerly of Operation Underground Railroad, you'll see here, Not looking so handsome there. I am, it turns out, 4 degrees from Tim Ballard. Through a gentleman I will defend again and again. One of the nicest guys I ever knew. As far as I know, got nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe doesn't even know Tim Ballard. That one I'm not so sure about, actually. But that's Brad Nelson, also known as Bradley Nelson, the author of The Emotion Code and The Body Code. And again, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I'm unflagging these so that we can talk about some other people now. And we talked a little bit about Gordon Bowen. If you don't know, Gordon Bowen is a marketer for, we're going to leave this one flagged because we're going to talk about it again. We got a few flags here that I'm leaving flagged pretty much all the time. We talked about a couple weeks ago, one Eduardo Verástegui. If you don't recognize him, he plays the financier character in The Sound of Freedom, is actually also the financier of The Sound of Freedom, at least one of the producers, along with executive producer Mel Gibson. The fact that Mel Gibson is in The Matrix with Tim Ballard and Jeffrey Epstein, not great. I'm sure he's not going to be happy about that when he learns it, but the Hellfire Agency is very small. The mission of the Church of Korihor, also very small church for atheists that are very big in our own right. And also the Center for Combating Human Trafficking, which is kind of like a spin-off Operation Underground Railroad, sponsored by CPAC, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty much just a money mill for a bunch of conservatives to pretty much tap that same Operation Underground Railroad money once they discovered that, holy crap, there's money, and convincing Mormons to donate a shit ton of money and QAnon people to donate a shit ton of money to fighting human trafficking, and nobody looks to see whether or not it's true. I'm going to leave flagged up here also Marla Maples. Haven't fully figured out all the ways in which Marla Maples figures into this. If you don't know, Marla Maples' second wife in succession of one Donald Jonificus Trump happens to be 1 degree from Tim Ballard, having spoken with him at the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast last year at Mar-a-Lago. And also 1 degree from Jeffrey Epstein, on whose plane she was wont to fly. We're going to get to that, actually. We're going to start with that. How? Let's do it this way. There's so many ways I've been thinking about how to do this. Before we get into our main subject tonight, I wanted to talk to you all about a man by the name of Alan Garten. Once I've done that, I hope you all appreciate. Whoa. I just want Alan Garten. Whoa, that was weird. I hope you all will appreciate the sacrifices that I make for you in life, friends. Because, where's Alan? It should have jumped me straight to Alan Garten. I am surely going to get my ass into a lot of trouble. I think I have to pull down this flag to see Alan. Where are you, Alan? Where are you, fucker? Alan Garten. Here we are. We're going to flag him and talk about him today. You'll see Alan Garten is connected to Donald Trump, who is connected to Tim Ballard, 2 degrees to Tim Ballard. Alan Garten is connected to Donald Trump, who is a former associate of Jeffrey Epstein, 2 degrees to Jeffrey Epstein. That is the sad reality of being a friend of Donald Trump's. You are immediately 2 degrees from both Tim Ballard and Jeffrey Epstein. And people said, why do you do this, Joe? I said, because they're closer than you think. And we're going to find all the mutual associations. Now, that being said, you could be 2 degrees from just about anybody. You don't know who your friends know. You don't know. You don't know who the people you met once know. So, again, none of this implies wrongdoing. I'm just saying, if you take all the people who are within 2 degrees separation from Tim Ballard and Jeffrey Epstein, it makes a pretty little red map. You see all those red lines there? Peter Thiel, you're in there. Ghislaine Maxwell is in there. Ghislaine Maxwell and Peter Thiel, you're both in there. Howard Lutnick is in there. Katie Miller, you're in there. Vladimir Putin, don't run. Don't run, comrade. You're in there. Glenn Beck, you're in there, buddy. Sean Reyes, you're in there. Linda McMahon, it's what's a wrestling thing? I almost said it's Hammer Time. That's a different thing. I don't know wrestling. Let's get ready to. You're in the fucking Matrix, Linda McMahon, First Lady of Wrestling and nothing else. Jim Caviezel is in there. Oh, you bet he is. Charlie Kirk is in there. Eduardo Bolsonaro, he's in there. Clark Gilbert, the next Mormon prophet, he's in there. Marla Maples, Sarah Bolos, they're all in there. Doesn't mean any of Benjamin Netanyahu, may he rest in pieces. We don't know that he's demised. We don't know. Who knows? Who knows anything? Okay. She got the smackdown. She got the smackdown. He says, need to label your edges, Joe. Oh, Harry, tell me more. Tell me more. I want to know all the things. How many of you out there work in tech? I need to get some people who work in tech and are cool. I need to get you on my app so you can give me good feedback on the app. Our social media app is so beautiful, it's so sweet, so gosh darn good looking. I have 2 copies of a file. Great. So we created another copy of it. Any of you use Microsoft OneDrive? I don't think I'm going to anymore. What a mess. Anyway, so Alan Garten we are highlighting now because an unredacted file just dropped out of. I'll just spare you that we didn't learn anything new. But basically, what we know about Alan Garten is he was Donald Trump's attorney. Here, I'll just read it to you as it reads here. Donald Trump's personal attorney mentioned many times in the Epstein files in connection to his denials of Donald Trump's involvement with Epstein and threatening journalists who run stories with actual malice, quote unquote, insinuating Mr. Trump was more involved with Epstein than any other guest. I'm not even going to bother pulling up the file. One of the congressmen, I believe probably a Democrat congressman, dropped the unredacted file for an email that Alan Garten wrote to, I believe it was BuzzFeed News. BuzzFeed News. In the series of to investigators who asked him, how does your client know Jeffrey Epstein? And basically he said, this is in 2008. He said that he knows him as maybe having been a guest at Mar-a-Lago. Lie. Basically, a whole bunch of emails start floating to Jeffrey Epstein, basically saying, get a load of this. He says he thinks he maybe knows you because you've been to Mar-a-Lago. And then when they asked Alan Garten, when was Donald Trump, did Donald Trump ever kick Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago? And he answered and said, no, because he was never a member of Mar-a-Lago. Wait a minute. That's not the narrative. That's not the official narrative, friends. But this was long before there was an official narrative. And then investigators asked them, he said, however, he thinks he may have been a guest at Mar-a-Lago. Oh, he may have stayed at the hotel, not been in the club. Okay. Well, that's not the narrative now, is it? And so, and then a whole bunch of, did you ever fly on his airplane? I fly on a lot of airplanes. Do you remember? He says, maybe I have flown on it. Is that the one? He said, maybe I have flown on it. I'm not sure. But never when there were young girls present. Wow. Okay. Sure. All right. And then he says, did you ever, and they ask him, did you ever go to his house? And he said, I may have been to his house with my wife. He doesn't specify which wife. Just a little word. Those of you Mormons out there who still like Tim Ballard, he has 3 wives. According to the biblical narrative, according to the biblical narrative, if he were a Mormon, he'd still be sealed to 3 wives, one of whom is buried under a golf course. I didn't say it was wrong. I didn't say anything suspicious was happening. She is buried in a golf course. And I personally, I think it's lovely. I think it's very thoughtful. In any event, but one of his ex-wives is one Marla Maples. And Marla Maples, we know, flew on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane. Also, she apparently looks a lot like E. Jean Carroll, who is, quote unquote, not my type. Now, I'm sure this is all fair, and we already knew most of this. In fact, we knew it all. So nothing new was revealed, except that whole block where Donald Trump's lawyer answered these questions to to investigators was redacted in the redacted Epstein files. The whole block was redacted. He doesn't want that in the official record. Somebody doesn't want that in the official record. I think I'm going to cancel OneDrive. It keeps popping up notifications to me. Anyway, who thought Linda is dirty as her husband? Linda may be the dirtier party, to be honest with you. I always knew that about you, Linda. I always knew that about you. I love this. Oh, Harry, love it. Let's go. Let's go. We can get help with my technology. In any event, that happened today. We discovered that they don't want even the insinuation. Now, many of you know that your man, Ex-Mojo, is very well connected. And one of the people I am very well connected to, I'm just going to tell you, good researcher, somebody I trust fairly implicitly, is, shall we say partner, shall we say friend, to one Lynn Packer. You guys know Lynn Packer, right? Broke the whole story on the Tim Ballard thing. And he's a gentleman by the name of Damien Moore. He works at American Crime Journal and happened to slip me a copy of a couple of documents, one of which we read last week. The other one we're going to read this week. And it's going to come back around to my friend Merrill, who is also a researcher here with Hellfire Agency, not full time. Boy, don't I wish I could pay all you guys for doing this stuff. It's cool. It's so cool to have friends who are already deeper in the research than I am, who sent me this thing and said, "Did you know that Justin, that is to say Justin Riggs, participated in a study?" And it's fascinating. Unfortunately, I went through and highlighted lots of bits and pieces of it, and then unplugged my computer to bring it out here, and none of those highlights were saved. Justin Riggs, as far as I know, is not in the Matrix. But what's curious about him is that he is a Utah-based Substack guy. Are you guys on Substack? Should I be on Substack? Like I need one more thing to do. And apparently he writes from the position of an LDS QAnon person. He also participates in some online forums. And this all got tracked by a person who did their master's thesis, study on on the links between the Mormons and the QAnon crew, which is shed some interesting light on this. Hey, oh, Harry Romo is Merrill. Is Harry Romo cool? Merrill, how do you know so much? How do you know so much techie stuff? Are you a techie person? Do I not know you? Do I not even know you? We've had conversations about this. So yeah, I wanted to and it just so happens while I was doing research, because all this was going on about Justin Riggs says this and Justin Riggs is that. I was like, who is Justin Riggs? I don't even know this person. I don't know what you're talking about. Basically, was LDS, started looking into abuse in the LDS church, particularly started investigating abuse by M. Russell Ballard, and took his QAnon rabbit hole diving and dove down the rabbit hole of discovering that he still believes in Mormonism, still believes in the church, still believes in Christ, still believes in God, still believes in the church. The men who run the church, not so much. And when he started running his mouth about that, well, look at that. You got excommunicated. Look at that. Wah, wah, wah. It almost seems familiar. So, Justin Riggs apparently still believes in God, still believes in the church, but not so much the corporation attached to the church. And I got news for you. I got news for your friends. That is the church. That is it. That is the thing. So sorry, Justin. Hopefully, maybe you will see your way to reason. But we'll give you plenty of time. And if you don't, cool. We're only looking for cool people anyway. But I wanted to go along with you on this document, this study that this person did, because it is it's fascinating. I have it opened up here in Acrobat without as many highlights as it had. I tried to get caught up, but then it was already past time, and you know how it is. Anyways, so we're going to remove our matrix. Going to stop sharing that. We are going to start sharing our blah, blah, blah. Where are you? Epistemology and blah, blah, blah. Yes? Okay, cool. All right. Let's go all the way up to the top here. You guys see that okay? Let me just head back to the stream. You guys see the document, yes? Okay. So you will see that this is from Claremont Colleges, and that this is a study by Indra Jean Louise Chapman, who is a trans person. That would not be worth mentioning, because why would that be important? It becomes important as somebody who has read much of this document. The title is Epistemology and Authority in Two Latter-day Saint QAnon Conspiracy Theorists by Indra Jean Louise Chapman, not that person's government name. Let me to skip on down here. I'm going to read a little bit of the abstract. I didn't highlight any of this, but we're just doing what we can here. Let's read a little bit of the abstract. QAnon and other far-right conspiracies are significant fixtures within contemporary culture. Through a series of interviews with two highly engaged QAnon conspiracy theorists who also are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I analyze QAnon as an epistemic formation characterized by critique of social conditions, modern standards of rigor and research, and a highly accelerated online information economy. So basically, they want to know who, I say they because I do not know this person's pronouns. I did look for them. I don't see them where that they have published them, what their pronouns are. But I did want to jump ahead to some of the things. They're looking for discovering what are the interesting things, that the attributes of people who are Mormon and people who are QAnon. And one of the persons that they discovered was one Justin Riggs. And let me just go ahead and skip down to where we talk about the methodology. Oh, this is interesting to mention in passing. I'm just going to read a little piece of this before we move on. QAnon holds disproportionate sway over Latter-day Saints. Data from the Public Religion Research Institute estimates that 18% of Mormons believe that the government, media, and financial worlds in the U.S. are controlled by a group of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who run a global child sex trafficking operation. Sound familiar? 22% of operations believe in the coming storm, and 24% believe that true American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save our country. PRRI sorted respondents into three categories: believers who mostly or completely agreed with all three statements, doubters who mostly disagreed with the statements, and rejectors who completely disagreed with all three statements. Now, as I was going into this, I just want to mention this real quickly. As I was reading through this and getting caught up, I said, well, it seems like this Justin Riggs guy is on our side. I mean, because his most recent activity, even though obviously he bought into the Operation Underground Railroad rhetoric at one point, he's come around on it now that what? Tim Ballard has come out to accuse the church of being guilty of satanic ritual abuse. Now, I grant you, ritual abuse happens. Does it happen in the Mormon church? Yes. With every polygamous marriage that happened, yes. Also, arguably, every temple ceiling has ritual abuse connected to it. Ritualistic abuse and clerical and holy shit. Who's there? The wind blows the door. I'm not freaked out at all, you guys, but I am going to go latch that door. Hold on. I'm not going to play any music. You guys watch in here. I'm going to watch in there. If I don't come back, call Scully. But this is the story. It's my goddamn show, and I do what I want. And I'm going to be comfortable. So, anyways, sorry. It's Satan. Get the hints, or, pull up a chair. Did you bring money? Beer and bitches? All right, fuck off. Fuck off, Satan. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get to talking about this. It's funny. Yeah, better not turn into paranormal activity. All kinds of things happen at Hellfire Agency to boggle the mind and make us wonder. Okay. In any event, when this person found out that Tim Ballard was accusing the church, was basically saying that the Pace Memorandum, that's a satanic panic document produced by Glenn L. Pace at the request of the Strengthening Members Committee of the Mormon Church, somewhat secretive committee, consisting of several high-up members of the Mormon hierarchy. He basically accused him. Does it? Maybe I am. He basically accused Tim Ballard of having been a con man from the start. And it's amazing. It's a beautiful thing to see the QAnoners and the Mormons at the same time after this is now, 13 years? Now finally saying, I dare say this Tim Ballard fellow is not entirely above board. It's almost as if this Tim Ballard was taking money from gullible people and just using their gullibility against them. It's almost as if he was abusing the faith of members of his own faith. What? Who would do such a thing? It is unfathomable. And yet, when this interview happened, they were still believers. So, in any event, PRRI estimates that 21% of Mormons overall are QAnon believers, compared to 14% for the overall American population. Now, I just want to be fair. That's true also within a few points. That's also true about pretty much all of the Christians, all evangelical Christians, pretty well split between people who believe that QAnon is real and believe all the claims of QAnon versus people who believe that QAnon is BS. Now, I will say this, when you look at if you look at this PRRI studies, the actual title is here in the footnotes, Understanding QAnon's Connection to American Politics, Religion, and Media Consumption. If you go and look that up, I looked at it earlier, I'm not going to bring it up now. You'll see that the number of Mormons interviewed, that in the Mormon membership, the percentage of people who say, I absolutely think this is BS and nothing about it is true, is significantly smaller than it is among white, Hispanic, and Black Protestants. So while the number of Mormons who believe in QAnon is not disproportionately large compared to other Protestant Christians, compared to Protestant Christians, you get on average more Protestant Christians who say, yeah, okay, no, nothing about this is actually true. Now, it's true that there is abuse in the world, but just the way that they're describing it, at the scale they're describing it, the same scale that Jim Caviezel and Eduardo Verostegui and Tim Ballard, etc., have been using to sell people things like Sound of Freedom. I'm sorry, it just doesn't exist. I'm not sorry it doesn't exist, but I'm sorry to disappoint people. You're not going to find that in the real world. But but it's interesting how this person has actually has used social studies, social sciences, to investigate how is it that people come to believe in these things, and what is the science behind creating these narratives. Does somebody actually sit down and create it? Does it create naturally out of panic? What is it that actually comes? How does it come about? We're going to get down to where they talk about how the methodology of how they found their two subjects for this paper, and what was interesting about them. Okay, so this is where they're still going over the church and why interesting things. Ezra Taft Benson, I'm not going to get into that. We spent like a whole episode practically talking about Ezra Taft Benson. Might come back to that at some other point. But this is fairly spot on. For somebody who's never been Mormon, Indra, when you see this, if you see this, you caught on pretty well to the history of how right-wing extremism happens in Mormonism. And Ezra Taft Benson is a name you cannot get away without saying. Oh, good. Then they talk about this guy, Robert Orsi. I didn't know who this person was. Robert Orsi apparently developed a system of creating ethnographic engagement, which are some of his most noteworthy contributions to the field. Orsi takes a hard stance on the responsibility of the scholar doing ethnographic engagement. Basically, this section is how they talk about how researchers going in with an agenda to influence the people being studied, is not ethical. It's not actually studying. You basically have to go in prepared to be a little bit aloof, prepared to be a little bit elusive, and to let the subjects be the subjects. Otherwise, you're tainting the data, right? You want to get the data, and in order to do that, you need to be prepared. Very interesting how they do this. You figure something like this exists, strategies for doing this, but it's interesting how this individual chose to do it. Here we go. So right after this, they talk about needing to interview them by Zoom because they wouldn't, if for no other reason than that they wouldn't get vaccinated. This is the subject. This is the paragraph I was looking for. My subjects were well-spoken and displayed positive attitudes towards me. Interviews were generally relaxed, personable, freewheeling, and fairly intellectual. You're welcome. My subjects were both well-read, which allowed us to communicate clearly and intelligibly about history, philosophy, and politics. They generally appeared to speak candidly about their perspectives and stories and were honest when they did not wish to answer a question or felt that they could not provide a confident response. At times, the interview would lose the plot, and I would occasionally have to recenter us after a long conspiracy-minded diatribe or a period of erratic topic changes. Outside of those instances, I was able to respond to my subjects with earnest engagement and enthusiasm, which seemed to encourage further conversation and foster a sense of security. This is interesting because the more we get into this, the more it seems like, in the interest of the research, this researcher who's doing their master's thesis on this and apparently has mastered the skill, I think you could argue that they were being deceptive in a way, but being deceptive for science in order to not taint in order to not bias the data. I would frequently conclude, they say, my subjects' responses with a brief summary of their points. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. My subjects appeared to know very little about me and did not frequently ask questions about me, beyond asking if I was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, there's the line every ex-Mo knows very well and can have a good belly laugh about. And it's interesting because that's all, obviously, that is all they asked. That's all they wanted to know. How many of us who are ex-Mos remember that this was the way we once were? That the world is divided into two groups, members and non-members. And everything they needed to know about this person was covered in, are you a member of the church? Which is almost disappointing when you find out the rest of this paragraph. Because they say, they did not seem put off when I told them that I had never had been. Well, of course not. You're a dry Mormon, aren't you? Because you want to know about Mormonism and you want to know about their politics and you've never been a member of the church. That means it's time to convert you to the church. And they occasionally stopped to explain certain church terms that they were unsure if I knew. Is that polite? Is it condescending? Who can say? It is possible. I think every ex-Mo knows the answer. It is possible that if my subjects knew more about me, especially my left-wing political commitments and ongoing gender transition, I told you that would come up, they may have responded more adversely to my presence. Yeah, you think? Or outright refused to cooperate with the study. Merrill, does that sound familiar, buddy? I conducted the study under my birth name. They had asked about many. They had they asked about any of these things. I had prepared a set of technically honest but highly elusive responses designed to smooth over the rough edges of my subject position and make me as palatable as possible to them. I don't know that that's the word I was going to use. Palatable. That sounds, I don't know. Maybe for draft 2, maybe for the final draft, something less oral, a word. Given that I knew of their far-right commitments, given what I knew of their far-right commitments and paranoid tendencies. On the whole, I generally sought to avoid picking unnecessary holes in my subject's theories in order to encourage candor and thoroughness. So in other words, they had to egg them along to get these people to engage. Okay, recruitment. Recruitment took place digitally across 2 different websites and platforms. My first recruiting platform, Truth Social, you'll love to see it, had a high level of QAnon presence. Really? but a low concentration of people who identified themselves as Latter-day Saints. Curious. Like Twitter, after which the site is modeled or cloned, the site is full of pundits, grifters, and trolls jockeying for a place in users' feeds. The atmosphere is overwhelmingly right-wing with very little content moderation. Sounds familiar. Conspiracy theories, misinformation, and spam abound, but there's a small community of everyday users who treat it as a place to share and discuss ideas and current events. I was able to find one of my subjects, Jonathan Plum, by researching for the hashtags #LDS and #QAnon using a recently created account. I publicly tagged him in a request to interview. Truth Social did not have a direct messaging feature at the time. Curiously, the Cororohor app already does. Just saying. One user on the Cororohor app already has a messaging platform. I don't know. I'm just saying. Just saying I'm kind of a code genius. It's just that I wouldn't describe myself that way, though anybody here would. I publicly tagged him, blah, blah, blah. He responded, and we conducted our first interview as part of a separate oral history project before continuing our interviews later that winter after full IRB approval. My second recruiting platform, the LDS Freedom Forums, is a message board populated almost exclusively by Mormons. And this one was fascinating. I may hop over here and show you a few things. This I learned a thing today. With subforums for news, faith-based discussions, and conspiracy. I made several posts on the conspiracy theory subforum called Secret Combinations. Boy, we're going to get some pay dirt out of this paper right here. This is worth the price of admission right here, which is being in a Facebook group chat with Damien and Merrill. Several, which I enjoy and get great information from. Several users objected to my interest in QAnon, calling it a psyop or generally denying its prevalence on the site. Justin Riggs, a prolific user whose posts comprised 1/3 of 1% of all posts on the site, responded in January 2023 to indicate an interest in participating. Do I show this to you? Yeah. Maybe we'll come back around to this at some point. This guy, Justin Riggs, is a character, man. Yeah. Let's go on. In any event, so they go on to explain all the ways in which the methodology is done, and they go on to explain subjects. I didn't really read Jonathan Plum's, so we'll just get back over. We'll just come down to Justin because he's the only one I was interested in. So it says Justin Riggs is a 43-year-old white IT professional living in Kingston Springs, Tennessee, with his wife and 5 children. Justin is an active member of the Dixon Ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and at the time of our interviews served as a ward clerk. Oh, great. One of those. Justin was born in Minnesota to devout. Those of you who are not from the Mormon paradigm, the ward clerks are spies. They will fluster at that. But any ex-ward clerks know this. Anybody who's left the Mormon church knows this. That basically the Mormon church has a team of people who it actually trains on how to use free and or paid online tools to track down people in the church who are trying to get away. Now they'll sell it as, well, we're trying to create a continuity of fellowship and community with these people so that they don't get lost in the system and lost from their brothers and sisters. They track you. They have people whose volunteer position in the church is to make sure you can't get away. It's creepy. My opinion, which is not expressly the opinion of the Church of Korihor. With this wife and 5 children, Justin's an active member. We got that already. Justin was born in Minnesota to devout LDS parents and grew up in Golden, Colorado, in what he generally described as a happy childhood. Justin attended the University of Denver for 2 years before embarking on his mission to Seoul, South Korea, which he left early due to problems with his mental and physical health before receiving a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. He finished his degree in ancient Near Eastern studies at BYU in Provo. From there, he started a master's in public policy at Pepperdine University in Malibu, California, before leaving due to political differences with his classmates and returning to Colorado, where he received a master's in adult education and training from Colorado State University. So definitely trending up. Justin is an active member of his ward and described himself as devout. Now, this is where we're dating ourselves a little bit with this study. From what I understand, it was somewhat recently, I believe in the last year or two, that apparently Justin was excommunicated. Justin is an active member of his ward and described himself as devout, though he described some of his personal doctrinal beliefs as slightly unorthodox. In addition to serving as a ward clerk, he also engages in ministry, visiting congregation members to discuss problems and offer support. He teaches Sunday school, an environment which he says is surprisingly open to some of his more unique beliefs. How many times have we said there's Mormonism and then there's Mormonism, right? There's no official doctrine in the church that there's a prophecy called the White Horse Prophecy, which predicts that in the end times, and we're definitely living in those end times, Saturday's warriors out there, that there will be wars and rumors of wars, and the Constitution will hang, as it were, by a thread. And you're hearing it, ironically enough, all the time right now in these Mormon bloggers. You've been hearing it all our lives. Those of us who are Gen Xers and millennials, etc. We've been hearing it. Everybody's living in the end times. All Christians are living in the end times. They're all waiting for Jesus. And they're all looking at the government all the time and saying, we're seeing... Oh, well, Joey, welcome back. Hope you're well, buddy. But here, let's just keep going with it. But basically, hold on, let me pull this up. But basically, they all have this. Pretty much everybody in the church believes that God is going to call upon the priesthood leadership of the church to save the Constitution. And I would say probably at least most of the Western saints that I knew growing up believe that will almost certainly involve violence, and that there is a war about to break out. And so I tell people when they ask me about this, and it's shocking to me I can't convince more people that this is true. I say, when Mormons talk about that they may resort to violence, you should take them seriously. Many people, I'm sure, heard Chad Daybell say things. As a matter of fact, we know that he said things and wrote things that left one with a taste in their mouth of, this guy might hurt somebody, long before he hurt people, including children and his wife and Lori's husband. This was happening. There were signs, and they should be taken seriously, and they're not being taken seriously enough. And among them, you have people like Ammon Bundy. You got people like Mormon Crackpot. Sorry. Morgan Philpott. Now I don't remember. Now it's hard for me to remember his actual name. When these guys talk about that it's coming down to violence and coming down to the end of the world, we should take them seriously. We don't take them seriously enough. Okay. In any event. So yes, you go to Sunday school and you say something like, don't we all know that in the end times, the Constitution will hang as it were, by a thread, and you'll see the nodding of the heads. And when somebody says, "Wait, what?" You say, "Don't worry, you convert. You'll catch on." Because there is one doctrine for the books, and then there's one doctrine for the saints. And nary the twain shall meet. Justin was released from his calling as ward clerk due to his public advocacy of conspiracy theories about Russell M. Nelson and other high-level church authorities. Justin described his politics in philosophically literate terms. He told me that his political principles were centered around man's right to choose above all else, and emphasized that his faith strongly informed his beliefs. He expressed disapproval of the Democratic, Republican, and Libertarian parties in the United States, and told me that while he votes in every election, he exclusively votes for small party or write-in candidates. Okay, that's where Justin may be a little eccentric by Mormon standards, and it may be a little too familiar for me, because I was one of those Mormons who was, quote unquote, never a Republican. I was one of these libertarians who had his own definition for libertarian. Okay. So we don't have to talk about it. It was a different time. It was a different time. Justin also mentioned that some people might find his political beliefs extreme, but that he views them as logical conclusion of his prior beliefs. Justin believed in QAnon, has been involved in QAnon since before its rise to fame. He was part of communities who interpreted and researched Q drops on the Great Awakening.win. You know that you're old school in anything when it's got a .win. If it's a .win, my God. Hello, Generation X. A QAnon-focused sub-community website platform similar in structure to Reddit. Justin is also a prolific poster on the Latter-day Saint Freedom Forums, where he has been active in developing and discussing conspiracy theories. He described facing hostility in non-Mormon online communities, saying there's a pretty strong anti-Mormon thread there on Great Awakening. .win, but seems to have a positive reputation on the explicitly Mormon LDS freedom forums. Oh, you think? So, anyway, I wanted to show this to you while we're on the subject, because LDS Freedom Forum is surprisingly open. If I go into Google and type LDS Freedom Forum secret combinations, let me go ahead and stop. Well, let me go ahead and remove that and start sharing this screen. Okay, you will see that it comes up right away. It knows exactly what I'm looking for. Mormon Dialogue also comes up. That would be an interesting link to click on. Oh, look, we got secret combinations. a talk. Yeah. You see who that was. Anyway, we're not going into it right now. We're on a quest. So you click on this and you go to secret combinations, and you can get to the search results automatically. And this is curious. It's curious what you get out of this. So Jarbar, I'm not sure who this person is. I'm not sure what Justin's username is. I don't know that that's revealed anywhere, at least not that I've seen. Are you LDS? Have you read the Book of Mormon? Do you believe in secret combinations? Do you believe in secret combinations in our day? If so, what are they? Who are they? Who runs them? What are they planning to do? Have they infiltrated the church and play the most realistic PC game of 2026? I don't know if this is just like an ad for the platform or what. I don't know. By the way, I do want to mention, because it's worthy of mention, you won't find ads for corporations on the Cororohor app. A little bit. I'll show you a little bit about that. We'll poke around a little bit. It's pretty cool. You only see ads for our missions and for your own personal development. including pitch in $1 or pitch in $5 to help a person who's trying to get out of a bad situation. This person can't afford their insulin. That person can't afford, formula for her babies. This person needs to put down a security deposit, so that they can get out of an abusive relationship. Those are the things that you're going to find on the Cororohor app, and never once will you find that we sell your data. Never once will you find that the Church of Korihor lets AI use your data to train its models. In fact, according to our laws of robotics, we poison your data if our network gets breached in any way, so that it specifically can't be used for training AI. In any event, I just thought that would come in as useful information for people there in the future who can sign up on the app. All right. Let's see here. Somebody responds here. This is Spark plugged. Yes, at least 20 times. That's how many secret combinations. In the Book of Mormon, those of you who are uninitiated, secret combinations are organizations that have like secret handshakes, and where people get together and know each other as being by symbols and signs and passwords, as being part of the same club, not reminiscent of anything at all. But who knows? Who knows? It's a totally invented thing that just first occurred in the Book of Mormon, I'm surely. But these people are saying they see it today in the world. Secret works of darkness, everything from governments and higher level organizations such as the UN or central banking, down to little secret groups among missionaries in their respective missions. Now, wait a minute. This is Mormons calling each other out, saying that there are secret combinations among Mormon missions. Not paranoid at all. I have to say, there was Raid Shadow Legends. There was not as much booby in this website when I was looking at it earlier today. These LDS, they call us Cororohors, but LDS, you'll sell anything, man. You guys will sell anything. Saints, clean it up. Down to little secret groups among missionaries, boom. Put in simpler terms, they all have intent somewhat resembling Cain. Take from others by hurting them and cover it up. In other words, those still fighting on the other team from the war in heaven. Now, there's a lot in here that needs to be unpacked. He who hath ears to hear the racism. Put in simpler terms, they all have intent somewhat resembling Cain. Take from others by hurting them and cover it up. In other terms, those still fighting on the other team from the war in heaven. They are run by evil people who are influenced by the inner natural man and mentored by Satan. Murder, enslave, conquer, destroy. Depends on which group you are talking about. But if so, God would cleanse the leadership of the church in his own way. That's a underhanded way of Mormons saying to each other that if God knew that the brethren were corrupt, he wouldn't allow it to go on. He would take them back. He would make them high to Kolob. Moses 5:31 says to Venator, and Cain said, truly I am Mahan, the master of this great secret, and that I may murder and get gain. Wherefore Cain was called Master Mahan, and gloried in his wickedness. While they don't always involve murder, there are plenty of folks out there wrapped up in these secret combinations that seek to build themselves up at the expense of others, whether it be in terms of wealth, power, influence, or whatever. I always marvel that these Mormons can join MLMs and then say shit like that. That being said, I don't specifically, and I'm going to lose friends over this one day. I don't particularly dislike MLM as a business model. I just dislike pretty much all MLM companies. As a model, I don't hate it. I just hate the way that they've had to make it work. And having worked in MLMs pretty much my whole career, yeah, that gets complicated. Although I will say this, I have worked for a couple of companies that I have found were actually really good, had fair compensation plans, were actually trying to cut back on and diminish the scamminess and creepiness, and they are all out of business now. Well, so maybe that's a lesson for all of us. Isaiah 29:15, woe unto them. Too much boobs in this website, brethren. Saints, why's it got to be so booby? I'm not saying I'm offended by boobs, but why so much boob? Who are you? What are you trying to? You don't need it. You don't need a hook for Jesus, friends. Isaiah 29:15, woe unto them that seek to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark. And they say, who seeth us, and who knoweth us? So, in any event, this is an interesting resource, ldsfreedomforum.com. You're going to find, at least if we don't find information to help to populate our mutual associations between Tim Ballard and Jeffrey Epstein, we at least will find some interesting things about what they're talking about since then. For example, I can come over here to the search. Hello, why is it not working? Oh man, it's probably because I'm searching. Oh no, here it is. Okay. And I can put Tim Ballard. Thank you. Auto assist. You guys can see this, right? All right. I can type Tim Ballard in and find 1,657 matches. For example, Bonhoeffer, interesting character if you know where that came from. I strongly suspect that Bonhoeffer is somebody that we know, at least the person going by Bonhoeffer. In any event, December 28th, 2025, just recently, well, comparatively, says, I think Russell Ballard then tried to unofficially tap Tim Ballard in anticipation of this, who had the right clean-cut look, the right background, the right blend of Mormon institutional fidelity, with strong pro-U.S. sentiment and rhetoric. Let's click on that, shall we? This is by InfoWarrior82. I'm reading this for the first time. I'm opening this for the first time. Again, this all came about today, this new research. I have a strong inkling we're going to find that if this is not our man, this is going to be somebody close to him. Anyway, that looks familiar to me. I'm going to go ahead and open this. Does it give you any information? Oh, I think I'd have to be logged in. Okay, whatever. You notice I'm getting into all this information without logging in. This is public facing. InfoWarrior82 wrote, they copied in, fractal light harvest. Interesting. Many of them may transition to the other side fairly quickly at this point, as often talked about. That means murdered or killed. Quote, I think Bednar was originally tapped to be the next McKay, Grant, or Hinckley and become basically a Mormon cult leader prophet. I mean cult in the good sense of the word. As in, he was meant to have a cult following like Hinckley did. But I think they've struggled as an institution with molding him being too naturally obtuse and not subtle enough in his management style to engender a cult following given his strong authoritarian approach. Boy, that's one way of saying it. I think he was originally chosen precisely because he was so stern, but it seems like that has backfired because they haven't been able to temper it, and he doesn't have the grandfatherly panache of Hinckley or the distinctive, smoother style of McKay. I think Russell, you guys like that? You guys should we do more impersonations? More prophet impersonations, I hear you say? I hear the comments from the other tabs saying, Joe, give us more. Give us more. Prophet impersonations. More that we can enjoy. I think Russell Ballard then tried to unofficially tap Tim Ballard in anticipation of this, who had the right clean-cut look, the right background, the right blend of Mormon institutional fidelity with strong pro-U.S. sentiment and rhetoric, and already had a cult following with his non-profit work, but that seems to have burnt out even quicker. Ego is what's killing the Mormons, in my opinion, but it's burning down many other religious institutions besides them as well. It seems that there is an institutional desire to recreate the tone of Mormonism's heyday while still increasing profits and engendering the institution to the broader religious community, but I'm not sure this is possible. They'll have to either choose their unique culture or else be whitewashed by mainstream corporal religion. Again, I'm not saying I know this, but this sounds like it might be our man. And I wish that I had had time to research exactly where that all came from. Oh, this is interesting. Ransom. It's an interesting profile picture. Ransom me. Interesting. Yeah, Bednar is definitely on the spectrum for sure, he says. Why you gotta shame the Spiceys? What do we have to do with you? Why you gotta be like that about it? That's being cruel to those who are actually on the spectrum. Oh yeah. Oh, thank you. Who is this? This is Bonhoeffer. I surmise he's an arrogant a-hole, high on his own penishood power, and is anxious to lord over the world, so he thinks when given the chance. Here's my point. It gets spicy in the Mormon forum. Should I bring up the other one? I don't think I will. So our friend Merrill actually engaged from one of the swarm's many accounts. If you don't know, that's partly how Merrill gets good info. And engaged directly with Justin Riggs, this person. And this Justin Riggs posted in his Substack a whole bunch of the interactions he had with our friend Merrill, in which I think he refers to him as bitch ass more than once. These Mormons get spicy when you step on their heroes. In any event, so yeah, that's the story. I'm trying to find in here the other clips that now have been lost to the highlighter. We wanted to go over that's not it. Okay, here we go. Okay, so these are the QAnon identity questions. I'm going to go ahead and share this page with you guys so you can see. Share. Going back to our study here. So basically, this individual ended up coming up with 3 questions they took from this study as topics of conversation with both Jonathan Plum and Justin Riggs, who were the subjects of their study. And they asked them these 3 questions to see what their response is. Jonathan, PRR, anyways, the government, media, and financial worlds in the U.S. are controlled by a group of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who run a global child sex trafficking operation. Response, somewhat agree. There is a storm coming soon that will sweep away the elites in power and restore the rightful leaders. Somewhat agree. Because things have gotten so far off track, true American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save our country. Strongly agree. So there we go. Let me see if I can get to the one with weird, man. With our man. Did they talk about this one? Oh wait, did I miss it? With our man Riggs. Well, maybe not. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I skipped it somehow. Anyway, not that interesting. But neither of these individuals qualify as of yet for the Epstein-Ballard matrix. You're welcome. But what is interesting to me is how much information can be gleaned if we're willing to continue to go down the rabbit hole of going into these forums, because that's how you discover the people whose mutual associations actually do get them into trouble. This is how I'm finding more and more connections that plausibly link to Ammon Bundy. I'm seeing more and more connections. This is how I found all these connections going to Steve Bannon, which is who is strongly adding up as, besides Donald Trump, perhaps the most influential person when it comes to connecting 2 degrees, within 2 degrees of Tim Ballard and Jeffrey Epstein at the same time. These guys knew a lot of people. And Steve Bannon worked very closely with Jeffrey Epstein to connect people to opportunities, to connect them to investments, and to make trouble, and to shape the world. And what's ironic about it is that while a lot of this does seem to play into the QAnon book, a lot of QAnon people, when you say that there's a secret cabal of people who run the world, they're thinking you mean Jews. And Jeffrey Epstein was Jewish. That being said, Jeffrey Epstein was not, while he appears to have practiced Judaism, he does appear to have practiced it, at least the community aspect of it, as a way of wielding influence and power and connecting with wealthy and connected and politically connected Jewish people. The way he's described, even among atheists, like Lawrence Krauss, for example, broke my heart, Lawrence. Broke my heart real bad. As being a person who liked interesting people. Okay, all of us like interesting people. Not all of us are doing what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. And all these people who were closely associated with him, after his crimes were revealed, it's suspect. It's suspect. I can understand needing money. I can understand needing access, needing jobs, needing travel arrangements. As Bill Clinton claims, he wasn't able to move with the money that Clinton Global Initiative was throwing around. They weren't able to move that number of people around as easily without the use of Jeffrey Epstein's plane. Never heard of NetJets guy? All right. Anyway, cool. Maybe that didn't exist back then, actually. I just don't buy it all. But who knows? Who knows what the answer is? But the more we look into it, the more I look into it, the more interesting names come up where I say, if I throw that in the Epstein files, is there a hit that's going to come up? Or if I throw that into Wikipedia, am I going to find a connection to Tim Ballard? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no, but there's that 1 time out of 10. And it's interesting how often somebody tells me, it just feels like you're wasting your time. But what did you find out? Did I push my most recent changes? We're gonna head on over to the app here. I have mentioned more than once, I think. We Cororohors now have an app. And I want to kind of give you people a vision of it and see some of the changes on it, if you don't mind. Yeah, everything is Satan worshiping. Yeah, it's strange, you know. Yeah, that's a good point, Harry. That Ballard misquotes Bonhoeffer. Mormons generally do. Mormons abuse their heroes. Make them say things they didn't actually say, make up stories about them. There's something to say for the myth makers, right? The myth making mind. The myth making mind that says, well, I know what DNA says about Thomas Jefferson's kids who were slaves. And about Sally Hemings. I know what the record says about Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson. But I like Thomas Jefferson. So that's all that you need. And it's the same rhetoric you still hear out of Tim Ballard's mouth. And Tim Ballard says, well, people need to give. If you don't know, we went over this before, how Tim Ballard went on a podcast where they asked him about the Epstein files. And he said that you should give them a break. Just being in the files doesn't make you guilty. Surely that's true, but being in the Epstein files a lot raises questions, and they're legit questions. And anybody's be justified in saying, why are you in there so much? What's going on behind the scenes? What does this mean over here? The little innuendos. It's disgusting, when you look at it again and again. The references to Stephen Hawking, shocking. The things that we've learned about Stephen Hawking from these files, and I just went, "Wow, I'm trying hard to keep it together here," but we had the situation where Tim Ballard went on this podcast and he said, for example, Alan Dershowitz is named. Oh yes, Alan Dershowitz is in the files. Alan Dershowitz, we know, was accused by Virginia Giuffre. And he says, and I know that can't be true because I know Alan Dershowitz. This is how we decided, by the way, Timmy, when you see this. This is the moment when I said, that's it. We're building the Matrix. I said, I didn't know that Tim Ballard knows Alan Dershowitz. How does Tim Ballard know Alan Dershowitz? How many people in Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle does Tim Ballard know? And why is he suddenly so anxious to defend them if he's not in there? Now, again, to the best of my ability to discern, I have not found Tim Ballard, his name, anywhere in the Epstein files. Congratulations, Tim Ballard. I do not find Operation Underground Railroad in there anywhere. That is to say, I don't know that they haven't been redacted. And I don't know if they're among the files that just mysteriously ended up not being part of the document dump, of which we now know there's at least multiple instances they have now been compelled because of public backlash to release interviews naming a certain high up individual in the U.S. government. I mean, how do we know that we don't know? And we won't know until we know all of the connections, or at least enough of the connections to answer things like this. How do you know Alan Dershowitz? Why are you convinced that Alan Dershowitz can't be guilty of this? If I can be convinced that Lawrence Krauss, one of my favorite atheists ever, one of my favorite writers ever, one of my favorite cosmologists ever, that he's dirty. It's weird. The sounds out in Virginia. Hello? Hello? Could be. Let's see. We're talking about Dershowitz? No. Oh, Krauss. If I can be convinced that Lawrence Krauss getting mentioned as many times as he gets mentioned makes me suspicious of the things he says, and then go and read some of the things he says in his emails and in his private conversations with Jeffrey Epstein and go, holy crap, they're talking about girls. He knows what Jeffrey Epstein does with girls. Lawrence. If I can be disillusioned on Noam Chomsky and Bill Clinton, okay, I admit I gave Bill Clinton more room than he deserved because I liked his politics. At least I came around on a lot of his politics. But this is what critical thinking means, guys. It means that you have to know that you can meet your heroes, take with a grain of salt that the things you liked about them weren't bad just because they turned out to be bad. And at the same time, that they are not good just because you thought they were good and just because you agreed with some of the things that they said. I was reluctant to believe the accusations against Anthony Weiner. Remember those? And I went and I said, what? Anthony Weiner's one of the good ones. He's a progressive. He's out there fighting the good fight. And he was. Also was sharing dick pics with minors. And it's like, you can be good in one area of your life and be an asshole everywhere else. And it becomes important. But then there's this myth-making mind. And it's strongly connected with this Mormon defense that I'll often say Tim Ballard. I would say back before he was excommunicated. And I said, one day we will look back on this after Tim Ballard's kicked out of the church, and they will say, we never talked about him like that. And I'll say, see, they're doing it now. They're doing it now. Once upon a time, they talked about Tim Ballard like he was Joseph Smith. Once upon a time, they talked about Donald Trump like he was Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith, we've known this man's crimes. For over 100 years, we've known this man's crimes. And still to this day, they make videos. Jacob Hansen made a video a few months ago, a couple of months ago at least, in which he says, was Joseph Smith a pedophile? This is not up for question, friends. This is well known. This is known. This is a known commodity. Yes, of course he was. And he says, and he brings up Helen Mar Kimball. And brings up, these quotes, does not nearly dive into the whole subject of all the records of what Helen Mar Kimball herself said, of what was said by her father, Heber C. Kimball, a man we grew up hearing quoted in the Mormon Church without any reference to the many quotes that compromise him as being literally a trafficker. And, and here we thought of him as a spiritual giant and said, he can't be a bad person. I feel so good about him. And now even Tim Ballard being out of the church and saying that the church is complicit in the Pace Memorandum, not in tracking the satanic panic, but in perpetuating a satanic panic and that the satanic panic is real, turns around and treats Alan Dershowitz like he is. I'm just wondering if I'm getting feedback in my headphones, and that's what the voice I'm hearing is me. And And that's why, he comes out and says, I know Alan Dershowitz. I know him to be a man of God. I know him to be virtuous. I feel it in my heart. And that's the logic, even while his former brethren turn on him to say, you were never one of us. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think Tim Ballard was ever really Mormon, or if he was, it was marginally so. Now he seems dirty because why? He comes out to accuse the church of satanic ritual abuse. And so even people who've been kicked out of the Mormon church, like our new friend here, Mr. I've already forgotten his name because it's getting late. Justin Riggs, defending the church, which he has exposed and apparently been excommunicated for exposing for its abuse, saying that that Tim Ballard is just trying to cover up for himself. We're seeing the same strategy from ex-Mormons who cannot come around to critical thinking. And that's why, back in the day when I started covering Tim Ballard, and I said, look, failed ex-Mos, Mormon flunkies are not ex-Mos. I tried unsuccessfully to start that hashtag. It's too long of a hashtag. I only did it mainly as a joke. And I was disappointed it didn't take off. But Mormon flunkies are not ex-Mos. We ex-Mos, by and large, we are atheists. It doesn't mean exclusively so. But we believe in critical thinking for the large part, not exclusively so. But those who are, I'm looking to start networking with more and more. And for that, we need a new social media place. I wanted to show you some of the new features of the Cororohor app because this is fun. And I did, by the way, I mentioned, those of you who don't know, who weren't here for this part, that it might even save you some money. I was thinking about this afternoon because I've been thinking about the marketing angle. Even while the Cororohor app has only one person in it, I'm already thinking about the marketing angle because, well, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I'm a marketing guy. Chrome tab, Cororohor. All right. This is very new. This app is a week old. Do you remember when you were a week old? Be gentle. That's all I'm saying. Be gentle. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Cororohor app. This is what it looks like in the mobile view. That bar on the side isn't the way it actually looks. When you end up at the Cororohor app, you'll find out. I am led to believe by my team, that one can actually now sign up at the wait list by going to the website. Let me go ahead and throw it up here, this is easy to remember. So maybe I don't even need to put it up there, but I'm going to Cororohor.app. One goes to Cororohor.app, and you can actually sign up for the wait list. Then when I review that wait list, I should be able to review the wait list and then send out invitations to people that I know. I can either vouch for you or you can vouch for yourself. I am making a limit at this time that verifiers on the app can verify up to 50 people. But I wanted to show you some of the cool new features of how this works. So as we talked about before, there are these large posts. This is in lieu of apps, are things that prompt you to develop yourself in your emotional and spiritual growth by posting things like this. Healing starts with deconstructing. Post a series of pictures from over the years with a caption honoring what you still cherish. Little prompts to suggest how you can use the app more effectively, not only to have fun, but also to sort out your shadow work, sort out your traumas, and so on and so forth. It comes up with little notifications. I didn't actually complete this path. This path to reason hasn't been fully developed, but in any event, this is what it looks like when you have done that. when you've completed something, and you can click on the X to close it out. This is a new feature. It's called the Beta Test Hub. This is really cool. This is one of my favorite things. Oh, wow. Doesn't it come up weird on the phone? Interesting. I'm going to have to tell the app to, I'm going to have to tell the team to change that. But in any event, it comes up with these ideas that can be upvoted or downvoted by beta testers. When you get approved onto the app, I will be only approving people who agree to become beta testers. And you can use this to either add ideas or to comment on ideas. So here's an example of one such idea: a TikTok short video post type. Or in other words, I've looked into this. You can click on it and it pops up with a description. Pretty self-explanatory. Going to have to come back to this one to fill it in. But basically, we can use bunny.net. This is a Slovenia-based company to host short videos pretty inexpensively at first. To control costs, we might need to plan to scale up video creators by inviting specific creators to onboard with video content. Eventually, we would move these to self-hosted servers. So basically, my idea is this. Basically, this app is going to be a replacement for your Twitter. You don't, of course, I'm just saying, once you use it, you're not going to want to use any of these corporate apps that are just selling your ads to companies that are using your attention against you, using you and your data, selling your data to each other so they can sell you products that they benefit from, then underpay their workers, i.e. all of us, to sell us crap, and then use our information to train AI. Why would you continue to support that? Why not opt out of it? Do all of your tweeting here on the platform, and you can post tweets as long as you want. And you can edit them. Took Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk like 20 years to add an edit button on a post. Here, it took me literally $4.69. In any event, I foresee a day probably in the near future where it will also be kind of a TikTok. In fact, right now, you cannot post video content from any other app. That's a way of trying to prevent the idea is here: no bots, no billionaires, and no bullshit. As much as possible, we don't want to generate any more revenue for corporations that are already profiting enough from destroying our economy and destroying our society. That's how I personally feel. If you feel that way too, you probably are destined to be a beta user. You beta. Onboarding new users is an idea. Affinity circles. This is an interesting idea I've been floating around with, which is the idea that, for example, we could have advocates chosen from among a group of people who identify as LGBTQIA+, or identify within that paradigm, so that people who manage the experience of how members of certain affinity groups, that may be, for example, Indigenous people, or particularly Diné people, or Ojibwe people, or Algonquin-speaking people, or people from Algonquin language nations and or tribes, instead of assuming what they want and what they need to create a safe, fun, and nurturing, spiritually developing experience on the app, and to enjoy the app and to build their community, instead of making those assumptions and arguing amongst a bunch of white and or cisgender and or straight people, let's let them decide for themselves. Let's let them decide what they want to see happen and represent for themselves what makes a better experience on the app. Right now, that's just an idea. Trust profile, vouching, and jurors. I'll get into that later. That's a big subject, but basically, you can go through all these different suggestions for ideas, and you'll be able to propose some ideas of your own if that's something you can do with constructive feedback. So, at any point in time, just so that you guys can take a look. Oh, now we have the trending now features, very, very similar to anybody who knows Twitter. You can click on hashtag Cororohors and it will pull up. I say you can click on hashtag Cororohors. There we go. And it'll put it into the search field and show you posts that have that hashtag. We'll see if it works. Okay, see, Megan Connor speaking and singing at our event in St. George in February. Hashtag Cororohors, hashtag Thrive, hashtag Exmos. And now you can click on those. It doesn't work in the details. We'll have to fix that. So this is the kind of thing that we're going to, need beta testers to go in and report bugs. By the way, you can also report bugs in the beta hub, which you can also get by opening up this sidebar or this drawer, which is you click on the Cororohor sigil. Isn't that nice? When it works. There we go. And you can come down here to most of these features you guys aren't going to see. You can go down here to beta hub. I'll take you in there. There's a little drop down here that says ideas. You switch from ideas to pending requests. That's not what I want. Oh, yeah. Sorry. You go to this middle drop down and go from all types down to feature or bug. Go to bug, and this is where you'll be able to post and say, there's a bug here. This is something's wrong. Also, but then otherwise, you'll be able to go through a feed. It is a 2-column feed. That's pretty cool. You can read this cool poem I wrote. I'm never going to tell anybody who this poem is about. You can go and look at your mission posts. You'll see here that this says Mutual Aid Network. That means that it was posted not on my personal feed, even though you see Joe Rollins here. That means it wasn't. That doesn't mean it was posted on my personal feed. That means that it was posted inside a mission of the Church of Korihor. For the first time, I put "Don't trust David. He's a phony," while the app does not have bots in it, so that I can see what it looks like. It's got a bunch of dummy content in it. David is not my friend David you guys have heard me talk about before, who's a badass and cool. David is somebody that the system, the AI app bots that make the system, that's the only bots involved here. So we're vibe coding this app. They made up David and made up a whole bunch of posts for him, but the AI doesn't actually interact with the content apart from that. It loads a bunch of content and then it just leaves it there. But in any event, I posted because David had posted in Mutual Aid Network. Let me click on it. Now, for the first time, I am able to debut missions. Well, our missions now work. They look pretty basic. They don't have a lot of features, but they're getting there. They're getting there. There's this post from David in here, fake person. We're organizing a virtual skill share this month. If you have a skill you'd like to teach or one you'd like to learn, drop a note here. Let's support each other's growth. And so I just thought, because I can't go in there and delete his posts. I could hide him from this mission where I am now the luminary. Oh, that's a new thing. We'll have to come around to that. But I could hide David's comment, but I'm not going to. I just decided I would add a post to that and say, "Don't trust David. He's a phony." Hey, everybody. That's when I decided at some point we're going to have a GIF. If you guys use GIFs on everything, I'm like toxic on Facebook with the GIFs. And one of my favorites is the guy from Family Guy, and he's like, "Hey, this guy's a big phony. Look at everybody over here. This guy's a great big phony." He's a phony. David's a phony. In any event, so as I've featured before, there's 3 main screens of the Cororohor app. This one, you, and then the one to the right and to the left are serve to the right and play to the left, or they cycle around. So I can swipe to the right and it takes me to serve. Even though this is all loaded in the web browser, by the way, None of this is an app that you buy from or download from the App Store or from Google Play. As long as we can get away with not having to do that, I want to, so that we don't give any more profit and any more control to billionaires. But it may come down to that. We have to do it at some point. At this point, if we don't have to, I'm not going to, because so far, I'm pretty impressed with what we can do with this very secure app on the server, and it has some really cool capabilities. Then I can go through and browse through all the different missions. I'm going to come back to this because the missions I mentioned earlier, it may be possible for us to help Americans and help each other to save a lot of money using missions. And I want to come back to that here in a bit. But basically, the missions of the Church of Korihor, these are our congregations. We have regional missions, or we will, where you can plan and coordinate with other Cororohors, and where you can schedule events. You can have a special divorce ceremony with the people in your area, where people can come out and support somebody who's going through the spiritual development that is part of leaving a marriage behind, whether that's in an angry way because you're leaving a bad, abusive, or toxic marriage, or a good constructive marriage, a good constructive way, and leaving on amicable terms. I'm grateful every day that the love of my life of 20 years and I just agreed, not without tears, not without heartache and sorrow, that for each other's benefit and for the well-being of the children, we would divorce. And and now we have a very good and healthy relationship. It's a strange thing. This trailer makes a lot of weird noises. Anyway, I can foresee one day somebody saying, you know what we need? We need a mission just for planning divorces, divorce ceremonies and rituals, and working out what how those look, and helping and supporting those people who are trying to get out of a bad or toxic relationship, who may be in danger, who may need who are trying to get their kids into a better situation. How do we give them emotional support? How do we rally around them in community? Another mission that I would like to see us build is going to be a housing, something I've talked about for the Church of Korihor since before we filed the paperwork in 2025. And this is one that's near and dear to my heart. I'm glad you guys are still here. I can't see your comments or see how many of you are here while I'm on the other screen. So hi, how's it going? When I started the Church of Korihor a little over a year ago, the first thing that I said to my beloved partner, Winter, who's here with me now in Virginia, who is trans, and I said to him, how big of a concern do you feel that it is that people who are trans are housing insecure? And he is like, really? He's like, it's like one of the main concerns for trans people. And I said, what if there were a church for godless people, somebody could have a mission in that church? If somebody were a clergy in the Church of Korihor, a person who is trans, or at least an ally, whoever that person may be, could take it upon them, if they felt that, for lack of a better term, calling, to organize what is effectively, without calling it that, an underground railroad of just moving trans people to places where they can be secure. We could have a nationwide network of safe houses where people can say, like, I have a cabin in Prescott. I have, I have another house, or I have an Airbnb that I run out of, I mainly know cities in the West, Malibu or whatever. If you're in crisis, contact me, let me know. Or or somebody can contact a luminary, which is what we call our missionaries, quote unquote, not people who go out to convert you to Cororohorism, but people who do things like this. It could be somebody's part-time or full-time work just to support keeping trans people safe and keeping them sheltered. A lot of trans people and queer people right now are doing the van life thing. I noticed since I've started to pay closer attention, and since it's apparently become more common, a lot of people in the LGBTQIA plus affinity, identity, and or orientation, etc., are moving into their vehicles. So that, not just because they have no other choice, in some cases they have no other choice, but because they need to be able to move state to state as the laws change. And for those people, and having done the van life thing and been effectively unsheltered myself since my divorce, which is very recently, and among unsheltered people, I'm perhaps the most fortunate because I have a roof over my head pretty much everywhere I go, but have spent some nights out on the road in a van that was provided for me generously by family. I know what it's like to go 3 or 4 days without a shower and recognize in every moment that you have not showered in 3 or 4 days. And how it is the first night that you're in a warm bed having showered. Hello? Okay, there's somebody there. Hello? Weird. Guys, I recant and rejoin Mormonism. I rejoined Jesus. Jesus, are you there? All right, fuck off then. And I think that there's animals. He's fucking with me again. I love it when he does that. You guys ever watch Fleabag? One day there will be oh, fuck that shit then. One day there will be a mission for the Church of Korihor that is just about keeping people. Nick, you're freaking me out. That one day there will be missions just for that, just for keeping trans people safe. I hope. And those missions will not be missions that I can organize, being myself, a cisgender person. We need others. We need people. And I'm going to mention again, when I organized the Church of Korihor, there's a reason why I put specifically in the bylaws of the Church of Korihor that you do not have to be a member of the Church of Korihor to be a luminary of reason. You do for being a herald, but that's a very different thing. There will come a day, I believe, when people who agree to not preach God, but don't necessarily identify as atheists, will nonetheless want to be luminaries of reason and conduct our sacraments and our ceremonies, and also to do our work and engage in our missions, including things like keeping LGBTQIA plus community people safe and helping them to stay sheltered. So that's what the missions of the Church of Korihor will be. And now with the app, I have the technical ability to organize that. So each of these, by the way, if you click on, if you join, if you click to join a mission, which this all look a lot different as we get people in here and using this. When you click to join a mission, it will take you to look at the rules and qualifications to be a part of that mission. Some missions, any friend of Cororohor, which is the free tier, or the no donation required tier of joining the app and joining our website also. Some of these you'll be able to join as a friend of Cororohor. Sure, why not? If you want to be a part of this, come on in. Others, you'll need to be a member of our fellowship, which means that you've taken the oath of reason, and you are registered as a member of the Church of Korihor and have voting power with the Church of Korihor, which means that you do make a contribution at least once a year of $48. And then others like Luminary Council here are clergy only, which will mean that people you have to be either a herald or a luminary, or heralds are luminaries, but who are, have more of a central focus mission not over the church to say, but to serve the whole church. And or people who are in training to become luminaries. Or going through the process of being ordained as a luminary. And then you will have a VIP mission. What does that look like? Again, I don't know yet. But VIPs is what we're calling people who agree to give $48 a month. What's the difference between people contributors who give $48 a year versus VIPs who give $48 a month? Right now, that one gives $48 a year and one gives $48 a month. I do think it appropriate to say we at least have some services and some discussions, some level of access that for people who give a little bit more, get a different level of access than people who give $48 a year. Just want to highlight again, neither of these people, hopefully, are giving 10% of their income. If you gave $48 to the Church of Korihor and that was 10% of your income, please contact me so I can give it back. Jesus. You don't have to be a friend of Cororohor. You don't have to donate to the platform. You don't have to donate to the church. But for those of you who have the means, I sure would appreciate it if you signed up as a VIP. And again, beats the hell out of tithing. In any event, I want to show you some more things about what you can do with the Cororohor app. So that's what the missions look like. We're still figuring this out. There's a lot of bugs in it. But hey, at least in this much, it works. I did want to mention this. I did want to show this. It's supposed to show this at the top. I think I just haven't pushed that build out to the live. Look at me sounding all techie. Well, not yet. It should be showing up here at the top who the first luminary is. So you guys know that I am first herald of the Church of Korihor, which means that our heralds are kind of like apostles, if you want to call it that, or cardinals, if you want to think of it that way. Whichever one is currently elected as the first herald is the one who basically has pretty full dictatorial control. I said when we started the Church of Korihor that it would be a bit cult of Joe for about a year. This is the end of that year. One day, and I have said this many times, probably not in 2026, probably not in 2027, I bet. Who knows? By the bylaws of the Church of Korihor, every year there is a general ballot. And the general ballot will say, if you were to renumerate do you think we should renumerate the heralds? If the answer is yes, and people are like, maybe we reevaluate the leadership structure of the heraldry. I call it the heraldry. And if the majority of voting members, that's part of the reason to take the oath of reason and become a fellow of the Church of Korihor, is that you have voting power. And that voting power for $48 a year, that's a pretty good deal. Now, mind you, I have to decide that you would make a good fellow of the Church of Korihor. But once you're in the church, you can make a decision like, maybe it's time we reorder it. And I certainly hope one day somebody will, that we will, and say, you know what? Maybe we reorder, shake things up. Let's not have anybody be in leadership until they die, like in the Mormon church, or frankly, like it is with popes or what have you. let's change it up every once in a while and say maybe the third herald should be the first herald for a while. And let's just try this out. Maybe the Church of Korihor would benefit from having, a central leader figure, a figurehead, if you will, who is a woman, who is a trans person, who is gay, who is black, who, I'm not saying that that's their qualification. I'm saying once in a while, it's good to have somebody who doesn't look and sound like me making the most important calls. And I certainly hope one day that I live to see it happen. I built this organization with bylaws so that will happen one day. My hope is that this church, the Church of Korihor, survives me, and that and that one day somebody wiser than me will take it in a direction I never could have foreseen. And I am very excited. I hope I live to see it. So this is what we're dealing with here. So that's what my role currently is, first herald. In the missions as of now, though this is not in the bylaws yet, but in the app, which is effectively as good, every mission will have a first luminary, and that luminary can be a herald or they can be a luminary of reason. Heralds are luminaries as well, and then it can also, that first luminary can also ordain. While they can't ordain other luminaries, they can ordain people who are luminaries into their hierarchy to say this person is second luminary, third luminary, and so forth, which sets up a very clear order of succession. Part of what makes this numeration effective is that we also at the same time build successions where something to happen to me, second herald of the Church of Korihor would take over. Currently, we're lucky nothing is happening to me because we don't have a second herald. But that's the way it will look in the luminaries. So in any event, so that's missions. Just a brief overview. Before we go on to play, I just wanted to mention. So I had said earlier that we would talk about how this could potentially save people money. I'm very sensitive to the fact that right now, in our country and in the world, and especially with the developments that are happening with Iran and Ukraine, food prices are going to go through the roof. They were already high, but they're going to get higher and higher. I think you have to be out of your mind to think that this conflict with Iran is going to be over this year. And maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, if Afghanistan lasted 10 years, I don't think most people understand how sophisticated Iran is. I don't think most people understand how entrenched Iran is. I don't think people understand how Tehran itself is a natural fortress. I don't think people understand. I certainly don't think Pete Hegseth has the slightest clue, or Donald Trump has the slightest clue of what occupying a country like this would look like. And I think they've gotten rid of most of the people who would know. But they believe they have God on their side. I don't know if you've noticed this. It's fitting for us to talk about it as a church for godless people. A surprising number of military personnel are leaving their posts and blowing the whistle that the U.S. military has become radicalized with the expectation of Pete Hegseth and his cronies, the people he is concentrating in a scary way into the leadership at the Pentagon, telling the soldiers and sailors and Marines and etc., spacemen, etc., in our armed forces, our servicemen and women and persons, that they are engaged in bringing about the end times, that they are engaged in Armageddon. And it's terrifying for those of us who have family members who are in the service. It's terrifying, I think it should be terrifying to veterans who know what it's like to serve in a secular military. And it should be frightening to all of us who are concerned about how this will impact all of our lives, not just in the fact that we are going to lose loved ones. And Donald Trump has stated from the beginning, in frankly, a little lackluster of a way for what he was saying, that Americans will die in this conflict. And already they are. Not nearly as many. Yes, they're doling out death on the Iranian people. And maybe that was a long time coming. But I don't think most people realize how this is going to disrupt our economics. It's going to disrupt our food trade. It's going to disrupt our business. And it's going to severely damage our standing in the world. And I'm not saying it because I want you to vote differently. I'm not saying it because I endorse or unendorse anybody. I'm saying it because we already are seeing a day and age where, in spite of what we may be told by the powers that be, people are hurting financially when they go to the store and buy groceries. They're hurting on gas prices. We're hurting in the price of housing in a way that we have never seen before. I gave a sermon about a year ago in which I went over, some of you remember, I went over how in 2018, a few months after they cut support for food stamps for SNAP, 9,000 people in 2018, 9,000 Americans, and among those disproportionately seniors and people of color, died of hunger. I would like to see in this list of missions you're looking at right here. You know, I got a little distracted here because I don't want to belabor this with negative things. That was just in 2018. More Americans died of hunger than any other year on record. Now, granted, they only started collecting that record in 1990, believe it or not. But more Americans died of hunger in 2018 than any year on record. And then in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, let me just not keep you in suspense, all the way up to last year. It's the same story. And every year we broke the record. Between 2018 and 2022, that number doubled just in those 4 years alone. From 9,000 people to just over 9,000 people to just over 22,000 people in 1 year died of hunger. Disproportionately, again, seniors and BIPOC people. And we're living in a moral crisis here. By the time that we live through 3 more years of the administration that instituted that first round of changes and now has implemented more changes to reduce SNAP benefits even further and to reduce Meals on Wheels. As far as I'm concerned, I think they've almost entirely eliminated it by now, haven't they? I mean, we're seeing an extermination in real time. We are seeing a massacre in real time. And why bother rounding them up or deporting them, though that's also happening? Why bother rounding them up and forcing them into labor camps when you can just cut their SNAP benefits and you can remove people from the Social Security benefits rolls by just starving them? You can tell me that's not what's happening, but I have eyes. And then I predicted, unfortunately, prophetically, in last year, I said, just watch and see how long it is in 2025 in this new administration, how long it is before the government orders the CDC to stop publishing how many people in this country are dying of hunger. And it was about 5 weeks later that exactly that very thing happened. In any event, here's where I said, we need missions. We need missions that are just about helping Americans to be able to afford their groceries. It's going to become increasingly critical. And the way to make that happen, I'm convinced, besides mutual aid, because all of these groups will be able to work together with mutual aid groups and endorse partnerships with other mutual aid groups, so that if you are in a season of plenty and you're able to give food, blankets, money, fuel, whatever is necessary, training, whatever thing becomes needful in your community, and especially among immigrants, especially among LGBTQIA plus, and especially among people of color, especially among people who are differently abled. You'll see ads in the mission that you work for, or that you joined. Because you're in that mission, every time you're in your You page, you will see these little ads pop up. I call them caring posts because, of course, they're not ads, because nobody's paying for them. Nobody is paying. We will never sell space on this app, period. Instead, what you will find is that a caring post like this one may say, this is Janine. She has 2 small children. And she's in an abusive marriage. If you could and here's a fundraising bar. I'm going to make a few samples of what that looks like. In theory, we can already do this, and here's a fundraising bar. We're looking to raise $1,500 for Janine so that she can get into an apartment, so she can put down a security deposit. Or this is Emily, or this is Jack, or this is, whomever. And they are in this bad situation. You'll also see caring posts like this that are like Sumac, which is the first of the mutual aid groups that we're partnering with, and saying Southern Utah Mutual Aid Coalition is, collecting dry foodstuffs that they can take around to immigrants in Southern Utah right now who are unable to go out to work because it's cold out there, shall we say. And this will be a place where we can support those networks rather than competing with them. And where mutual aid doesn't exist, or where people are far from mutual aid and need individualized help, they can join the app and they can talk to a luminary or a herald, and say, I'd like to ask for some help. And it may be that it's not a request for you to just donate or give a gift to that person, because if you give directly to them, we'll certainly, for the right person who needs help and needs it fast. I am not against in any way putting that person's Venmo, a button to that person's Venmo, and saying, look, don't give it to the church, just give it to them. Just give it to them. Also, but there will certainly be some who will have Etsy shops. There will be some who have eBay stores. And I am very excited to see that one day this will be the place where you never see an ad for Geico Insurance. You never see an ad for another dating site. You're never going to see an ad for any of that. What you're going to find are the people you want to connect with and people who are in need and opportunities to serve. Maybe it's not money. Maybe it's not even resources. Maybe it is a little emotional support. Could somebody hey, I'm trying to lose weight and I'm putting my story online. If I were to put this story on Facebook, or Twitter, I would get unending amounts of hate for it, going, yeah, well, fatty, you blah, 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 blah. But here on the Cororohor app, we don't do that. And if people do that, I guarantee you right now, we're going to kick them right off. And we verify absolutely everybody who ends up on this. Every person who ends up on this app is going to be verified by somebody on the app, either with their photo ID or because they are a person known to that person. And then as you develop, will also be for various roles on the app. You'll also need to be criminal background checked and checked to make sure that you're not on the sex offender registry, things like this. We'll use the resources that we have to keep our people safe. And if you get banned from this app, we're going to be real generous with roads back to redemption. But once you are banned and we've decided to forever ban you, you're gone. We're not going to have any assholes on here. You don't want to lose your account on the Cororohor app. You will lose it. So, and the justice will be swift. It will be forgiving, but it also can have a permanent effect. We're not going to put up with the crap they put up with on Twitter. Take your dirty ass over to Twitter, play with Elon Musk and his bot. In any event, I can swipe right again after I'm on serve. These are our missions. I didn't even get to the thing I want to talk about. The other way that we can help Americans to reduce their costs and to be able to afford living in this country right now, just checking to make sure that you guys can still see, is food buying clubs. And I don't know if you've seen these, but it's like an online Costco, but where instead of going to a Costco and shopping, you join in with a group of people who are ordering in bulk, and they're pretty freaking cool. Some of these online buying clubs, food buying clubs, you and 100 other people or a few dozen other people or 1,000 people can not only buy food in bulk, but when it comes to like produce or meat, you can buy directly from the butcher. You can buy directly from the rancher. You can buy directly from the farmers. We can support these people who are producing the food. This country produces so much food, we throw half of it away, if not more. And the reason why the prices ratchet up, besides the fact that tariffs affect it, of course they do. War affects it, yes, of course it does. But a large part of it is just all the middlemen involved in getting it to the shelves in the place where you live, when you could place an order this week and have groceries sent to your house directly from the warehouse where they're working with the farmers. And basically on a co-op model, you could buy directly from the people who are growing the food, building the food, creating the food. And then of course, many of them have the ability to buy commercially available foods, so in case you need chicken dino nuggets, you can get those too. But can you imagine if when you clicked on one of these regions, it came up with, like in Western regions, like here is the Western food buying club. And every month you're going to need this many hamburgers, you're going to need this many hot dogs, or however often it is. Because some of these some of these clubs, they put in one order a month. Some of them put in an order every week, as I understand it anyway. I don't understand it all the way. I know what it is. That doesn't mean I'm an expert. We got to get some people on this app who are experts at this. Let's get them starting food buying clubs. We'll call them missions. And imagine if you could save 10, 15%, 20% or more on your grocery bill by simply buying in bulk, and no need to go to Costco, no need to get the big cart, no reason to drive into town, get the big car. I'm definitely sensitive to that now, living out in rural Virginia, which is not that rural, but out here, little towns. Going into town to get groceries, it's a pain in the ass. Imagine if you didn't have to do it. Imagine if you could just place an order, save huge amounts of money, not give your money at all to Walmart, not give your money at all to Kroger, not give your money at all to billionaires like this. Buy it directly from the source through these food buying missions. I'm super excited about this, you guys, and it may be that I'm just drinking the soup that I'm swimming in, but I'm willing to gamble everything on that. This is a game changer, man. And it's going to suck for a while. We're going to figure out all the ways in which I'm doing things wrong. So far, we've done a lot of that in the first year of the Church of Korihor, and guess what? We've come out better for it. And look at us. We're doing this thing. We're growing. If you swipe right again, you get to the play. Just checking to make sure that there aren't comments here that are bad. I got to start appointing some. I got to start appointing some moderators. Is that something? Tim, are you telling me that the Iranians just took out Ben Gurion Airport? Dude, this is crazy. Church will forever live rent free. Life Christ is king. But king of what? Anyway, let me again get back to my work now. So Cororohor cast, I'm not loving the name of it. I'm just calling it that for now. Basically, this will become the streaming app. This is, I'm not going to say cancel your Netflix, but one day, can you imagine if you did? For now, once we get this up and running here, which will be in the next couple of weeks, this will be where we post Godless sermons. One day in the near future, you'll log into the app to watch the live sermons. Probably one day, probably closer in the future than you think. We'll stop broadcast. Maybe we'll stop doing live broadcasts here on YouTube, and we'll do them all in the app. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there just in case. I want to know what people think. Would you do it just for that, just to have that in there? But also a comprehensive library where you can watch cool documentaries. Where I would love to have something kind of like what they have at Angel Studios. Don't judge me too quickly, but the Angel Studios has their dry comedy bar, which is somewhat popular. And it makes sense. They find some comedians who are willing to not work blue, which is how you say not use swears and dirty jokes, who can come out and are willing to make a little extra money by entertaining a bunch of Mormons without telling them dirty jokes. Personally, I think they walk pretty close to the line for what they do, but kudos to them. It makes sense. I've said this for a long time. This is what Angel Studios should have been doing from the beginning when they were VidAngel, but whatever. They come around to it. I'm not saying they did it for me. I'm saying we want what if we could discover the next Taylor Tomlinson? What if we could discover the next Eddie Murphy? What if we could discover the next John Marco? And they can work as blue as they freaking want. And get real comedy specials in here. That would be so cool and way cheaper than producing original television series. That being said, can you imagine a day 5, 6, 7 years from now, 10 years from now, where all the shows you love on Netflix, all the shows you love on Amazon, if you do, or Apple TV, or Apple, I mean, what if one day we could just produce our own? We can make our own stuff. I think it'd be great. But I'm even more excited about tables, which I'm certain will come up. That one will come very soon. I think sometime over the summer, we will start launching tables, which is basically a series of games, community games, where you can start a table. And as soon as you have a table, you can invite specific players. You can send a link in your favorite, instant messaging app or an email or something. Say, hey, I've got a table open right now on Cororohor. Head on over to the app, and you can join in and play. Or you can just launch it and say, I'm bored, I'm lonely, and want to hang out with some friends. And you can just post it onto the U feed and just open it up to everybody who's on the app right now. And now basically the U feed becomes like like a lobby. And people will see a tile on here that says, hey, so-and-so has a table open right now, and they're going to play a game. And you'll be able to click on it and say, cool, I could, I want to make some friends and play a game and have a good time. And you'll be able to go and join somebody's table. Other people at some point will have some that allow an audience. So people will be able to get on and they'll be able to comment as everybody's playing. I'd also like to see us create a live video feed element in there. I'm working on the tech, and anybody, again, I need some tech smart people to be beta testers so that I can run some ideas past you. I've already got some that have agreed to be on the app. I need to get a community of people who are patient and cool and innovative and recognize that we are a poor church to get on this app, but have some technical know-how to get on the app and say, with this framework or with that technology, you could do something pretty cool with this, and I'd like to help, and or at the least give us good advice. But wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if you could if you could see a table that's going up? And I always think of, when I imagine, I think of Latter Daily Digest. I don't know if any of you guys are still here. Tim, I know it's late. Believe you me, it's 2:30 here. But I'm just so excited about this. I'm so stoked about this. And my Adderall may or may not have dropped in the last half hour. But I think one day Gene and Tim and me and maybe Megan and Connor, those of you who don't know who these people are, I'm sorry. Maybe a bunch of us, Kim, Nikki, maybe a bunch of us will get on and play a Family Feud style game, or a Hollywood Squares style game, or a Clue based game, something similar to Monopoly or something like that. And we'll say, look, you can watch the board and weigh in with the comments, or click the feed and just watch us play live on video, and people will be able to click on it instead of commenting here on YouTube or Vimeo or wherever it is. You comment right here in the app, and the app is your it is your live video feed, and we could play all sorts of games and have all sorts of fun. I think it would be great. Then, of course, a library. We'll have the whole Cororohor canon in here, and I would love to see if we can get some samples of books for people in our community who are having a hard time, who would otherwise have a hard time promoting on Facebook. I don't know if you've ever written a book. I have, and let me tell you, the Paul brothers. What are you saying? What are you saying there, Meryl? Yeah. Angel Studios they're in the Matrix. I'll say it that much. Okay. Neil Harmon, it's suspect. I'm just saying, Neil Harmon. Angel Studios is suspicious. In any event, what was I talking about? My tech shills are 20 years out of date. I think you mean skills, Hyde. But that's okay. Screw it. Get in here and talk to us about it. I would love to get Hyde on this app, man. It'd be so great to have some of the coolest people on this app. What was I saying? We were talking about the tables and libraries. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you've ever written a book. I have. And I thought for a while, I'm just going to promote it for free. I'm just going to post on Facebook groups. And I found that for about 6 months, every person that I talked to on Facebook or wherever, or in person, got pretty sick of hearing about the Cororohor argument. And I don't blame them. I look back on it now and I cringe. It's like, oh God, was that really me? That was so gross. It was gross. But because these models, and then at the same time, recently in promoting the Church of Korihor, I post a bunch of content on TikTok. And if I'm willing to pay TikTok $50, Oracle, they call us Cororohors, but man, the Mormons at Oracle got no business throwing that around. If I pay them $50, $60, $70, I can get thousands of people on a video about our blanket drive, or recently about our Jezebel song, our Godless hymn, and thousands of people commenting and saying, "I love what you people are doing. I had no idea who you were. As a fellow ex-Mo, I endorse this. I don't know why this is a church, but I love it. I'm an atheist or agnostic, and I love this. I'm not an atheist or agnostic, but I love what you're doing." So many comments on the blanket drive video that we have on TikTok. If you go to @Hellfire Agency on TikTok, so many of the comments are, "I understand that you are all atheists, but you're doing God's work. You're doing more Christ-like work than Christian churches." And, and then of course there's always going to be the troll or two. But I mean, Christian trolls generally are fairly easy to abide. Generally, you guys are out there, I'm sure. Be cool. But anyways, yeah, I'm not sure why you're saying the Paul brothers. I know who the Latter-day Saints are. I know who the Paul brothers are. I don't know what you're telling me about them, but they are trouble, man. Those guys, talk about white supremacists. But I tell you, at the same time, I think they know what they're getting an inkling of what they are. But the white supremacy in some of these new Mormon apologists, it is disgusting. Anyway, I would love to see a day in the near future where somebody who has a good book doesn't have to work so hard and doesn't have to pay anything to promote their work if it coincides with the mission of the Church of Korihor. And one day when we will have thousands of people on this app who are all real people, no bots, no billionaires, no bullshit, no corporations, you will not have to pay a penny if you're like, "Look, I'm just an ordinary guy who's trying to, put away for retirement or trying to survive retirement. I'm just an ordinary person who doesn't have a good research job since I graduated with my master's degree, and I've got this massive student loan debt to pay down. And I've just published this book, and it is just out there, not flying off the shelves, not because it isn't good, but because it costs so much money." I discovered in publishing and distributing the Cororohor argument, and it was a good thing that I did, the failure of the publishing of the Cororohor argument taught me a lot about the book publishing industry. And particularly that basically the people who do really, really well with books either write smut and hey, power to you. If you can make money selling smut, I'm game. I accidentally opened this up full screen. I didn't mean to do that. Either are selling smut in huge quantities because it's very difficult because so many platforms won't let you advertise erotica. And so they publish it in huge quantities, hoping that the people who buy smut when so much of it is available for free, either the Kororohor argument is not smut, but in any event, it's difficult. It's a difficult business model, even if you're selling porn, ear porn and or brain porn. But even that, you'd think it would be easier than it actually is. Or there are people who are publishing academic books, sci-fi novels. I've met quite a few sci-fi authors since publishing the Kororohor argument, who talk about the same struggle, or people who write ex-Mormon books. It is not true what people think, what people say inside the Mormon church, at least, and inside Christian apologists, and say, well, all you have to do is come out against the church and publish a book and you'll make $1 million. Not true. Not at all. I spent far more money advertising and or compiling and or printing and or promoting the Cororohor argument that I made in sales. Now, maybe part of that is the branding was wrong, the title was wrong. That's all very plausible, and I'm willing to own all of that. But also, it's just so damn difficult to get people's attention in an economy where their eyeballs and their brain power, their attention is being purchased by corporations all the time. And so, but what I discovered was that a lot of the people who make it big, and I'm not dissing them in any way, and even in podcasts, this is true. John DeLynn has plainly said this about Mormon Stories, that if he didn't have all the money he made working at Microsoft, he might Mormon Stories might never have gotten off the ground. And for 5 years, for the first 5 years of Mormon Stories, he said it was a money hole rather than a money producer. Now, eventually he ended up making, several hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, coming into through the Open Stories Foundation, and good for him. I haven't put in the bulk of that, anywhere near the bulk of that money, but I've been sending donations to them since 2011, I think 2012, because I believe in it. I don't listen to them because, frankly, I'm over it and I can't handle that much of it anymore. And I'm trying to move on with my life and do something more productive with my time. But I believe in what they're doing and that it's helpful to people, whether or not I like the way that John is handling it, because there are things I like about John DeLynn and there are things I dislike about the way he's handling Mormon Stories. But I believe in what they're doing. But to get attention in this economy for good, worthy work is so damned expensive that I discovered just in having conversations with people who've done it and been successful at it, that most of them, either a relative of theirs, and this is real, a relative of theirs died and left them a lot of money, or they mortgaged their house and used the mortgage from their house to pay for advertising, or they married a rich person who had a lot of money and got that person, or they just went out and got a business loan or like a massive credit card and went into massive credit card debt, or took out all their credit cards and went into massive credit card debt to pay for the advertising for their book so that they could get it out there and get it recognized. I did none of that. I spent some money. I probably spent, $400 or $500 out of my debit card over the years before I gave up and said, it's great to get eyeballs on the Cororohor argument, but the more I have to pay for it, or the more I have to work for it, and the more I have to put my reputation on the line and have people saying about me, as I discovered they did, wow, that guy is cool, but you can't ever have 2 words conversation with him without him mentioning this stupid book. That I realized I'm going to have to separate myself from the idea that the Cororohor argument is ever going to make money. And I did shortly after I published it in 2013, and my life has been so much better. But wouldn't it be great if our little app had a library where you could download a free sample of a book that we selected, not because somebody paid for it, but because it aligns with our mission? What if Natasha Helfer came out with a great new book about accepting about reconnecting with your femininity or with your masculinity? Or what if we got, you name it, right? What if we got a new book by Beth Magnetic or somebody like this, right? And they published a cool new book, but they don't have the resources to promote it in our little community. If it aligns with our cause and with our mission, with our values, they will have an audience. In addition to that, something that I'd like to talk about, and this will be the last thing before we start to wrap up here. I foresee, I talked a little bit about this. By the way, this is a pretty good book, by the way. I put this as a recommendation on it. It's just a screen capture of a book that I've been listening to. I haven't been listening to it. Well, anyways, I've been listening to it off and on. It's called Existential Kink, and it's pretty freaking cool. I listen to a lot of sex-themed books because I think that the future of the development of a lot of spiritual development in godless spirituality will ultimately see a fusion of sexuality, gender, and existentialism, because these are such important developments. It's such an important development in a person's life to recognize not only is gender fluid, not only is sexuality fluid, not only is gender identity and expression fluid from one person to another, but it's fluid throughout your life. And that what we think of now as being trans or queer or gay is really just the early development of understanding the ebb and flow of the natural course of our lives, and understanding what that has to do with the central theme of godless spirituality for me, which is existentialism and understanding the question of what does it mean to be alive in a world where that's optional. You don't have to be here. And this book was really, so far, has been very, very good. I've been very impressed with it. But imagine if, this is just a screenshot of my Audible. But imagine if, and I'm not sure how we're going to do this yet in terms of the tech, but we have I think there's some really good options out there, some really interesting options. Imagine if there were a podcast aggregator here, if we had like a podcast tuner. Right now I'm seeing something like a dial where you can filter through what you want to listen to while you're on the app. And you'll be able to watch videos at some point, at least videos from the Church of Korihor, though I would like to see us move to live streams at some point, and also short videos, something like YouTube Shorts or TikToks. Let's say 5 minutes or less. And to start anyway. But generally speaking, as you're going through all these images and text posts and things, you'll be able to scroll through different podcasts that align with the church's values. And small-time creators, not the big podcasts with big corporations behind them and things, and big book publishers and crap behind them, just little guys who are on our app, who come to us, and say, I'm not a big-time creator, but I'm doing good work, important work here. I would love it if you could make my podcast available as people are scrolling through the Cororohor app. We'll put their podcast up here. And one of those could be a book. I'm calling, how you have like BookTube and Book Talk? I've been calling it Bookahor. Hey, here you go. One post. Yeah, Bookahor. What if every club, every group, every theme in the Cororohor app ended in a whore? I don't know. I'm just playing with it at this point. But imagine if there was a Bookahor theme, and if you clicked on it enough times and pulled it up and went scrolling through, you would, even over time, it would start just giving you more and more content related to Bookahor, which is to say, ordinary creators, normal people like you and me, posting books and going through and learning more about them. What if we had a podcast that was completely independent from the Church of Korihor, but they just did books and have interviews with authors who came on and read pieces of their book. I think it would be so much fun. And so, anyways. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, Bill Reel's a character. I'll say that much for him. I don't know him personally, but I know a lot of people who do. Good luck to him. I'm gonna go ahead and remove all that. But anyways, I'm excited. If you can't tell, mainly because I'm in it. Maybe that's just why right now, and maybe it's not that big of a deal. But every day I work on this app, and every day I think about like what I've been doing on TikTok, which is small by comparison. But on TikTok, I've been reposting to my 6,000 followers, a little less, about people who are in need of a job or people who are in need of a little bit of money so that they can get their husband or wife out of ICE detention. Or people who could use a little bit of help to get, $5 or whatever. If enough of us gave a few bucks to help this person. There was a woman who was stuck in New Zealand, and she'd gone there she'd gotten a bad deal on a job that she'd been promised, and the job fell through, and she was stuck in New Zealand and had no support system out there. And, I did a small part in reposting these people's content so that they could get out of a bad situation. And in several of the instances of these people, in part because Cororohors on TikTok gave them $5, I'm sure, because several of you did, and I'm grateful that I can post stuff like that, and you guys we can help somebody out. And I myself have donated to quite a few of these people. $1 here, $5 there, and it adds up, and it makes a huge difference. And I think, but we have to pay with our eyeballs or with our wallets for the privilege of having a place where people can post that they need help. And organizations like Sumac will never be able to do that at scale. They don't have enough money. Cherish Families, the charity that we've been partnering with in Southern Utah, that's working to help women and children, families who have been abandoned by the Mormon polygamous cult down there since Warren Jeffs was thrown into prison. May he rot there forever, or at least until he dies. How are the organizations like that supposed to compete in a world where we're told these corporations and their billionaires need to control our policy? They need to control what we buy. They need to control whether or not we have jobs tomorrow. And oh, by the way, your data needs to train the bots that we're going to pay to do your job tomorrow. Your data we need to sell to between each other so that we can make sure that you're not going down to the store, down to the mom and pop store down on the corner, when you can go and buy this on Amazon, when you can go and buy this on eBay, you can go and buy this in the TikTok shop, buy this from Alibaba, and get it directly instead from the billionaires, and the billionaires buying and selling this to each other. And it just feels gross. And then we wonder why people get so depressed using social media. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's not anything like that. Maybe I'm wrong. But if you can't tell, I'm leaning in full to that I'm not wrong. I'm leaning in full that this little innovation, this little app, if we steer it right, we get the right brains in here, and we get people who show a little bit of trust, a little bit of hope, and a lot of patience, because we'll be learning on the go, and we will be learning some hard lessons along the way. I'm just telling you right now, I'm going in eyes open, bright eyes and full hearts. Is that how does the phrase go? On that, this is going to be hard, and I'm having so much fun with it right now. frustrating at times, but fun. I'm having so much fun with it right now. I'm sure I don't know the challenges that are ahead for me and us. But I believe in us. I believe we can change things. And for a pessimist, that's a pretty bold and daring thing to say. But I believe that people can change the world if we don't let the cynicism that's been implanted into us get us down. So I'm excited about it. And now I pontificated for 3 hours about it. Well, I did a lot of time about Tim Ballard too. Anyways, we like to close up with a closing Godless hymn. You guys know that we love music at the Church of Korihor, and we do let the robots sing. And damn it, but when they sing for us, they're so good at it. Last week we did review From This Breath to My Last, and got great reviews. I want to remind you all of a great song that we've recently just published called Jezebel. It's related to what I'm hoping will be the first documentary of the Cororohor app, if I get it done. Sorry, I'm navigating to it now, which is Mormon sex. I'm hoping after 10 years of working on this, well, not consistently, but trying to get this thing done, we'll actually finish Mormon sex. And I wrote this song specifically about that. It's lighting up TikTok, and not so much here on YouTube. So we're putting it up here so that you guys can enjoy it. I love your faces. Don't forget to flash bright, and I will see you on Friday.
You called me Lilith, my mother Eve, blamed with Delilah, christened the child I grieve. If you finally call me, I won't carry your shame. Sin next to murder, from which you were saved.